Hello everybody, welcome to another video of the building a REST API Phalcon with version 6. In this video we have quite a bit to do. We're going to introduce a refresh token, we're going to introduce a logout endpoint, and the three remaining operations for users, the UserDelete, UserPost, and UserPut. So insert and update to complete the CRUD, as we call it. In the previous video, we did quite a bit of work with regards to middleware and token authentication and checking of the tokens as they come in and protecting all of our endpoints. Right now, our goal is to get the endpoints ready and just make sure that they have the necessary protection. But as you can imagine from what I mentioned earlier, endpoints such as the login or such as the refresh or logout do not need to check the token as it comes in. As such, we're going to have to have a mechanism to exclude those checks on the middleware when the relevant endpoint is requested. Something like an exclude list of endpoints. That one will come most likely in the next video, where I'm hoping that we can wrap this whole series up. So today our goal is to create the tokens, the logout, and so on and so forth that I mentioned. So let's start with the refresh. We mentioned also in the previous video that we will need a refresh token. Just for those that do not know, it's usually acceptable in the industry that you have two tokens in your front end. One is the one that expires in a reasonable amount of time, and the other token is a longer lasting one which you can use to perform different operations. So one example could be that my main token is valid for 4 hours, so I do my login at the beginning, and then every subsequent request I just keep on reusing that token until it expires. And when my code finds that that token has expired, so after 4 hours, then I can use the refresh token to get a brand new one that will last another 4 hours, and so on and so forth. And the refresh token, according to some statistics in the industry, they say usually it could last a day. Now, of course, this is completely optional, up to you how you want to structure your application. I'm using this video series and application, I've said it numerous times before, to show a way of doing things. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is the way of doing things. Your application will dictate what your needs are, and you're going to decide whether what we're doing here is of value to you, some of it, all of it, none of it. Another strategy that people have used in the past is to expire the tokens pretty much immediately. So you would issue a login request with a username and a password in your /login. You will get the token, and immediately with that token you will send it straight back with another request of whatever you want to do. And that would be, let's say, a user get. Immediately after that, the token is invalidated. So for you to create a brand new request, you're going to have to do an auth again, a login, get the new token, and do that. That is a way. Again, it's a little bit of an extreme because you have a double the load on your server. You're going to have a login all the time, include with every request. And others have their tokens expire at different times, a minute, an hour, and so on and so forth. So the tools are here in this example for you to choose what path you want to take and how you want to address it. So for the refresh, we did mention in the past that we want this, and we tried to do a little bit of work, but we just left it as it was. So for instance, what we want to do in our JWT token class is to issue a refresh token. And if you recall, in the enumerations, in this JWT enumeration, we did create an element that has RID, which is the enumeration. And we're going to utilize that. We're going to populate this. So let's dive into it and start creating all these things that we need for the token. We're going to work towards setting up the refresh token along with the refresh endpoint, and to do so we got to work first on the routes. So in the routes in num, of course, let me move these two up, events, and then here we can have methods. What I can do is this auth login post, we can have another one, auth refresh post. Refresh. And actually I can do another one. It will be the logout, because we're going to work on that too. As far as the endpoint is concerned, we're fine. The login post and the logout post and the refresh, they're all posts. Certainly we can change the method here. And for the time being, I'm going to put exactly the same service until we create our own services for all of them. So logout post and then refresh. Alright, so just leave those here. So now we have the structure to accept a refresh endpoint. But the question is, where is my refresh token? If I go to my services and auth and login post service, let's have a quick look here. We have our invoke, we're getting the username and password, we're getting the user itself, we're validating everything, and then it says here I need to get a new login user, which one I get from the transport. And then I just get everything that I need from this method here, and I send it back as a result. Unfortunately, that one does not include the refresh token, because the get for user gives you a token, and we don't have a get refresh for user. So if we go here in the JWT token class, you're gonna see that we have a get for user, but there's nothing to refresh to get the refresh for the user. So let's work a little bit on this class, just make a couple of changes, and that would allow us to send all the tokens back the way we need to. All right, for starters, I want to remove this final from here, and I'm gonna mention here remove the final declaration so that this class can be mocked. This should not be extended. Okay, so we have the env manager passed there. Alright, we have the generate token for user. I want to change this a little bit. I generate token for user because certain things I really don't need them to be here, and I can certainly work without them. So for instance, these two, we don't really need them there. All we need is the user and whether this is a refresh token or not. So if I take those out and here, and then up here just write we need the expiration. Just gonna take this piece of code here and then go back to the generate token, and we just paste that. So we just move that code from the get token, what was it? Get for user, and we just moved it down here to the generate token for user. And the reason being is that the only difference between get for user and get refresh for user, the refresh token, is the flag. This one here, the is refresh. So everything else can be encapsulated here. Okay. Now, one thing we can do is we're getting the now and we're getting the expires at. But what I have seen while preparing for this is that there's sometimes that the tests are too fast to work with this, and they actually hit the token in the exact same second, and the validation doesn't work very well. So there hasn't enough time. There hasn't been enough time elapsed, or enough time has not elapsed. There you go. That's proper English. For this token. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to help it a little bit. So I'm going to do now equals now modify, and then it will be -1 second. So this is the code that generates the token or creates the token. Okay, the minute this thing is created, I'm actually telling it, well, your time that you were created and not before is -1 second. So it is just before this generation or something, or this amount of time. So the not before is not firing and saying, hey, you cannot use this token right now. Okay, so this is a little hack that we can do just to help us. Now, coming back to the get for user, things become very easy because it's just one call. All this has gone to the generate for user token, so user and pretty much nothing else, and returns the string token. And then what we're going to do is do a get refresh for user. Let's put it down here. And as you can imagine, the only difference is that this one will have a true here. So this will become a refresh token. And actually, let's change this. Let's make is refresh equals false. So by default, it generates a non-refresh token. And now that we have it, where is it? Up here, we're going to say, all right, give me that token. So now that this class has been changed to allow us to create a refresh token in the login post service, we have to take advantage of that and generate the refresh token as we should get it. So let's see where we need to do this. Login post service. So we got our credentials. Find by email. We verify the token. Okay, and then we're getting the user. here. Here's where we need to. So refresh token equals this JSON token, and it will be now get refresh for user. So this one will create a refresh token for us, and we're gonna throw it down here, which means in the new login user we have to come back here and then do the refresh token here. And of course we need to put it as a parameter. And also here. Okay. So the payload that we return every time we log in successfully also has the refresh token here. Okay. Now kill that. Let's not forget that we need to store that token in the cache as well. So it will be the refresh token here. So we're going to have two items stored in the cache. And I'll explain why we store the token in the cache in a little while. But this is probably the best setup we can get for now. So we should be able to get the token generated here. Let's have a quick look at the tests. Of course they're gonna fail. Okay. So the tests are for the registration. It is not complaining about the post service. It's probably because it's not returning the correct stuff back. It's returning the correct stuff back, but it's not. There you go. This is the one that I wanted to make sure that we have. So we left this code here in the last time around, so that the refresh token can work. It's complaining now that the routes enum test is not working. Of course, we added more routes, so let's quickly fix that. Where is it? Enums HTTP routes enum test would be what? So we have the login, logout, and refresh. So auth login, and this one will be logout. And this one will be refresh. We're leaving this service is the same. We haven't changed it yet because we haven't created those services. And this one should be not 2, it should be 4. And for the router provider test, it's here, and we need 2 more. How do we define them? We have login, logout, and refresh. Okay, so login, logout, and refresh. They appear the way they have been registered. So first in, first out. So in theory, if we run this, we should be okay. Alright, and that's excellent because if you recall in this one, the login post service test, we do send a login for the post with a post to this service. Well, it's simulated. We're just sending the array in there. But when we get the results back, we get this node, which is JWT, and down here, it checks if the array has key, has the token, and has the refresh. If we really want to check if this is the case, let me put something real quick so that you guys can see what I mean. So let's say this assert same, and then put empty string with data. So this test will fail, of course, but at least we can see what has been returned in the payload, and then you're going to see that it is indeed coming back. So this is the payload that comes back. It's an array, and if you recall from the transport, we're returning authenticated equals true, and then a node that is user, that we have the ID, name, and email. And then in the JWT node, we have not only the token, but now we do have the refresh token. All right, so we are sending the refresh token back whenever a caller logs in. A caller being the customer or the client that interacts with our API. Because I'm going to create more services under auth, I think we will benefit from an abstract class that will have certain things here that we will need. So let's create this abstract class, which will be abstract auth service. Clearly not final or read-only. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave the construct here, and of course not the invoke. But what we're going to do is we're going to keep the get unauthorized payload, and we're going to make it protected. And we need to send this back whatever we call it from, because we're going to call this method not only from the login post service that we did before, but from other services. So what we need to do is we need to define what these errors are. Okay, that's the beginning of it. Let's go to the input types for a sec, and yeah, it might not be a really good place to put it there in the input types, but for now it will work for us. So let's call it PHPStan type T validation errors. That would be perfectly fine to have it like that. It will be an array of an integer, and then it will be another array of an integer comma string. So it will be an array of strings. So let's copy this guy, and let's go back here, and then let's import it. And then what we are gonna do is we're gonna need a variable here, which will be what has been sent and what needs to come out here. So it will be $errors, and then this one will have array errors, and the signature becomes like that, but what we're gonna send is gonna be a T validation error. So it's gonna be this array with an integer key, and then it will be more arrays in there with integer and string. So this is our abstract class, and let's go to the login post service to use it. So clearly we need to change this. We cannot have the final read-only class. We can have the final class, because now we're gonna extend abstract auth service, and clearly we don't need the constructor anymore because we're constructing everything in the abstract auth service. And actually, while we're here, we can certainly change this to read only, all these properties. And for the login post service, oh, important, they cannot be private, they have to be protected. Because otherwise the child class cannot read them, of course. So there you go. Good little warning there by PHPStorm. So here what we need to do is, now this get unauthorized payload is not showing us what we want, and the reason being is that we have it down here, right? So let me copy this thing here and then get rid of the get unauthorized payload, because this one clashes with the one that we have in the abstract method. And now we see that these calls here are expecting an array. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the array, it's incorrect credentials, and actually let's copy the whole thing. And again, here it's going to be incorrect credentials, and I think we should be fine. This one, and this one. All right. So we made this little class here, this little method here, to help us with sending the payload back, and we moved a little bit of the code here, especially in the constructor side of things. So if we do come over here now, we can start working on the refresh object. The refresh post service, that's how we're going to call it. It's not an object, it's actually a service. It's going to be similar to this one. There's going to be differences in the invoke, clearly. But what we need to do here is, what we're going to be accepting here is going to be the token. So in order for us to refresh the short-term token, we need to send the long-term token, aka the refresh token. So token equals string of token, and then token equals the string token. Clearly we're going to do exactly the same thing here. If it's empty, again send a payload. But in this instance, we're not going to do app incorrect credentials. What we're going to do is app token not present, right? So we're going to tell, hey, I want you haven't sent me a proper token, so you know what am I going to do, right? Now we're going to deviate from what the login does, and we're going to have to find out whether this token that was sent to us is actually a refresh token. In order to do that, what we need to do is to parse the token. Token, and then get object, and then we're going to have token. We can do to do catch any exceptions here, and then what we're going to do is refresh equals token object get claims, get JWT enum refresh value. So we're grabbing the refresh from there, and we're checking if this is a refresh. So if false equals is refresh, then what we're going to do is copy this message, paste it down there, and let's say up token not valid. So it's not a valid object. The next thing we need to do is we need to find the user that exists in the token, and if that user is valid. All right. I'm just leaving this code here so that we can kind of like, well, I can just remove it. It's fine. All right. So now that we have a refresh token, we need to check the user. User equals this JWT token get user, this repository of course, and token object, and if true equals empty user, let's copy our error message, up token invalid user. Right, so we're moving along. So now what I need to do is I need to make sure it might be a little bit of an overkill, but I want to be 100% sure that this is correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to validate the contents of the token again. In order to do that, I need to have a user transport to do this validation. Domain user equals this transport new user of the user, and then we need to do errors. Actually, put one line down. Errors equals this JWT token validate token object domain user, and this one is a T validation. Do I have the T validation errors here? Probably not. I do not. Let's put it in here. It's the same errors that we expect here in this method. So now is we're gonna copy this, and we're gonna say if it's not empty, the errors array, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna, if we get errors from the validation, then we're going to call the get unauthorized payload, and what we're going to do is we're going to throw the validation errors back. Right? So now we're getting to the end of it, which is we got the user, right? And now we need to generate a new short-term token, and we're going to generate also another refresh token just in case to send it back. The second part, you can ignore it if you don't want. So in order to generate the token, we need to create a payload, and we have equals password equals get token password and use our token ID, and then of course use our ID equals domain user get ID. Now we're gonna have to get back to this one. The reason being is this is a technical thing on how you perceive things versus a problem with the code. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this user payload and we're going to throw it in the JWT token class in the get for user, and then also in the get refresh for user, so we can get the two tokens, right? Now, if you notice that get for user and get refresh for user are working with database fields, an array of database fields. So the benefit is that we can dump the DB user in there, but that is not 100% correct by means that we're using a domain object and transfer object, so we're separating from the database completely, things that we discussed in the past. So for now we can just leave it, but we're going to have to change this so that this one is the domain user. And in this, once we do change it, then we're just going to have to pass that instead of anything else. So let's put another to do here. Change this to be the domain user. So new token equals this JWT token, new get for user, and that's user payload, and then new refresh token equals this JWT token, get refresh for user, and then the user payload. And then what we're going to send back is, of course, an array. I will have token equals new token, and refresh token equals new refresh token. So this one will do the work and will send the new refresh token back to us. Of course, we're going to have to write tests for this, and we're going to have to do all these exception handling over there. All right. Now, one other thing to note is, since we're not catching any exceptions here, what we could do is here in the get object, when we catch the exception, here we could return an errors array. So we could potentially put an errors private or protected, whatever method, property here, and just collect the errors, and then once the operation is done, not throw an exception, but check the errors if there are any, and then just use it as is. Different strategies, different techniques, whether you want to use exceptions or whether you don't, whether you want to have a mix, it depends on how you want to do it. Okay, I'm just throwing different ideas here to give you an idea how flexible these things can be, and it will depend on the requirements that your application has. Of course, for our service, in order to test it, it's easier to do so once we have it in the container. We do have the class here, the refresh post service, so let's go to the container and let's set it up. And of course, everything is mixed up again. And with the power of video editing, it's all sorted out again. I mentioned this in the previous video. I have instructed PHPStorm to sort everything alphabetically, first the public, then the protected, then the private, and it does so also in the constants. But in our case here, I want to separate certain variables, certain constants, so that we have an easier way to find these things. I mean, I could definitely put a Z at the front, but that's not going to be something that would fly when you're trying to make the code easier for the next developer to read. Okay, so it's just a little bit of a hassle to put them back together exactly where I want to. Okay, so we're gonna put the services here. So let me put the constants. So we're gonna have logout post service, and this one will be logout, we need a refresh. And while we're at it, might as well put the other ones that we're going to work on. UserDelete. And then this one will be post, and this one will be put. All right. Let's sort them there. Equals alignment. Okay, these are to-dos. We're going to get to those, of course, in this video. And also, we're going to go to the middleware validate token revoked. And that would be in line with what we briefly saw, that we store the token in the cache, right? I'm going to come to this and introduce that middleware right after we write the tests and we create the service. So for the services, we have the repository, we have the services, we have get service auth post, auth login post. Okay, so why don't we do this? Let's say logout post, and also I copied too many. What did I auth logout refresh service? No. It's auth refresh post service. That's why it didn't make that much sense. Alright, so let's go back here. It's auth logout, auth refresh. There we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to hijack this service auth login post, and we're going to change it to be service, let's say auth post, and we're going to pass the class that we need. So in our case, this one will be login post service class, logout, which we do not have. Let's put the same one. Actually, let's keep the logout yet. Refresh post service class. And this get service auth post will be the same method for all of these auth endpoints, and it's this one here, which will accept a string of class name, and this will be my class name. And the reason we do it this way is because the definition is the same, the constructor. Now you will notice that we're passing more objects here in certain services. For instance, in the login we need all these. In the refresh we don't need all of them, but it's easier for us to use this method. Of course, nothing stops us from making one registration one registration method per service. It's entirely up to us. I'm just choosing to leave it as is. It's a little bit simple. You just pass the what you want, and then it will create it for you. Okay. Now let's have a quick look. Now that we registered this, let's have a quick look about the test. So we have this login post service test, and we need to create the refresh one, the refresh post service test. Let's go to the clone, refresh post service test, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the whole thing so that I don't bore you with typing, and I will go through every single test, and you can have a look on how we do this. Alright, so this one needs that. Okay, that one. Okay, that one. Credentials and all that. Alright, so the test service empty token. Okay, let's have a quick look. Oh, shoot, I closed that one, but it's okay. I need to open it again. Alright, so let's go to the refresh post service and have a look at how the workflow works. Okay, so we're coming over here and we have certain input. Okay, the input has a token inside, and after the things that we do here, we're checking if the input is empty, whether it was applied or it was empty, and so on and so forth. And if it's not empty, this is the first branch that we do, we're sending application token not present, right? Then we're going to the token object. We're checking if this particular token that was sent, if that one is a refresh token. And if not, then we're saying the token is not valid. Then we're going and getting the user for this token. And if the user is empty, then we're just saying invalid user. And finally, we're validating the token, whether the claims are correct. And if not, then we're sending back the payload. If we pass through all of these, then the payload is success. Now, granted, we have to catch the exceptions here, but that's a little bit later. Let's work on the test as is. So we're going to work on the first branch, whether the service, the token is empty. So what we're doing is we're grabbing the auth refresh post service from the container, and we're sending an empty payload in there. And we're expecting that the app token not present is there, right? So let's do this. Let's comment all of these guys, and let's run the test. Alright, there you go. We have one test. So it did go to execute that particular piece of code, and it returned, come on, this one, the app token not present. So now what we need to do is we need to go to the second step. So we've executed this part. Now we need to come to this step here, and we need to check whether this is a refresh token, right? Now what we could do is we can create a token. We certainly have the method in the abstract test case, abstract unit test case. We can certainly create the token there and make sure that it is a refresh token. But what we can also do is we can actually mock the class so that it returns exactly what we want, and allows us to move ahead with the code to just check whether the exception will be thrown at that point. So in this service, if we come down here, all we need to do is make sure that this token object, whenever we call get claims, and whenever we call get on that get claims, it returns false. And then in that case, it should go in this branch. All right. Again, you could create in your test a new token object, a new token string, which will come here, and in that token string you have set the refresh equals false. Okay, I'm choosing to showcase the mocking part, so and I want to explain the logic behind this mocking methodology. All right, so let me just import a couple of things. Item is this one. Token is this one. And JSON token is this one. All right, so let's have a quick look at the code here and let's explain. We want this one to return false, right? So how are we going to get it? We're going to get it by going in reverse. So because this is a chained call, we need the get to return a false whenever you call this. All right, so the get needs to come from the outcome of the get claims. With the power of magic and checking the repository, we know that this is a JWT item class. It's this one here. Where is it? Oops, sorry, I'm in the wrong part. It's this class here, the item class, and the full namespace is Phalcon encryption security JWT token item. It's this one here. So this is what get claims returns. All right. So what we're doing is we're starting from the back, and apologies for the phone. It keeps on beeping all the time. All right. So we need this to return false. Okay. So we're mocking this one first, and then we're going to mock this one, and then we're going to mock that one. It appears that, apologies, it appears that right now everybody decided to send me messages or get emails. So let me hook it up to do not disturb. Alright, I should have done that earlier, but again, apologies. Alright, so this one has to return false. This one has to return what we want here, and this token object has to be the one that will return the relevant item from the get claims, and that item will return false. All right. So let me copy these two lines so that we can see them as we go through this, right? So it's these two lines up here that what we need to do. In order for us to get the is refreshed to be false, we need this get, no matter what we pass on that get, to return false. All right. This part here, the outcome of get claims, is an item. It's the JWT token item. So we're mocking this, and we're just saying the method get. Whenever the get is called, will return false, right? So we got that part done. So how are we going to tie it to the rest? Okay, well, now we need to mock the token, and the token is this get token object. So what we need to do is whenever get claims is called in the token object, we're going to get this mock item. All right, so we're mocking the token, the get claims method, and whenever we get the get claims method, we're going to turn the mock item, this one, which when you call get, it will return false. Right? All right, next one in line. So we got to this part, but how do we tie it to the whole thing? This is the object that we want, and this is the object that we're using, and this object is the outcome of the get object in the JWT token class. All right, so we need to mock this method now. So we're grabbing the JWT token class, we're mocking it, and we're saying whenever you get a get object, you're going to return my mock token, which whenever you get a get claims on it, you will return the mock item, which whenever you call get on it will return false. So it's a little bit of a one after another, but it works really well. It also saves a lot on database calls, so it's a good technique to know. And now that we have this mock JWT object, what we're doing is we're setting it again in the container, right? So we're just going to set it in here as JWT token, and then what we're doing is we're getting the auth refresh post service. And when we do this, when we get it, then the container will automatically use this JWT token object and inject it in it. And then by doing so, it will execute everything, but when it comes over here, the getToken object, it will query this JWT token, which is our mocked JWT token. It will call the JWT token object with whatever, and that one will return our mock token object, which we will call getClaims on it, which will return our mocked item object, and then when we call get on it, we will get a refresh. It's a little bit interesting, to say the least. But when we run this, we see a success. All right, so this thing executed, and we're going to see it in the code coverage better. What if I do a code coverage thing, and then bring up the refresh the HTML window. All right, let's have a look. Refresh 96.22. Okay, domain services. There we go, auth, and there you go. Refresh post service. We're getting there. It's a little bit of code coverage going on, but you see that the first test that we wrote, and apologies for the dog again, we're checking the token, and then we had if the token is empty, and this one is the test service empty token. All right, and then when we click on this, since this one is the test service not refresh token, so our mocking forced this is refreshed to be false, and then it went into this part of the code. So now going back to the code, if we do the wrong user ID, which is the next branch that we're coming out, and of course we're going to write a few more tests to do the full cycle with this. We're not going to only rely on mocking, and why not? So let's have a look. Okay, we got this, and then now we have this get user, and we have to check if the user is empty and if we get again an unauthorized payload. So how do we do that? It's the same process as above. All right, we need to get the item, we need to mock the item, but this time whenever we call get on the item, it will return true. So coming to this part here, it will tell it that yes, this is a refresh token. And now the next thing that we have to do once we got the get, we're gonna do the get claims. All right, of course, because it has to return this mock item here. And then we have to do two things. First of all, the get object, and then the get user, because there's two methods that we return here. The get object will have to return the mock token, right? But the get user on the JWT token, the mocked one, will return an empty array. So look at how this would work. We're mocking the JWT token class after this big chain, and when we're calling get object, that one will return our mocked token object. But coming further down, when we call get user, this one will return an empty array, and if it returns an empty array, then it will be empty here, and then it will call the get invalid user. Now if we run the test, this one should have returned an empty array, and this one should have executed. So lo and behold, if we click on this, it will tell you test service wrong user. So the next thing that we have to test is whether we have any validation errors. And we can do this certainly with mocking again. So let's go back to our code. This is the wrong user. Let's do the invalid token. Let's uncomment this out. It's very similar to the one above it. What we're doing is we're grabbing some new user data, doesn't matter what it is. And for the errors, we're just saying, okay, incorrect token data. We don't care about the errors. We just want to make sure that once a validation error has occurred, it returns back to the user. Similar to the above, we're mocking the item and we're just saying whenever you have a get, you will return true, and that is for the isRefresh token. Get claims returns the mock item. And then JWT token, we're now having three methods that we're mocking. Get object will return you the mock object. Get user will return this user data that we have up here. It doesn't matter really what we return. We're just doing it so that we can move further down into our code. And the validate will return this errors array, and we're just going to say incorrect token data. Okay. Now, once we call this, it would actually come up here, do what it needs to do. The token will be okay. It was just a normal token. The isRefresh will be returned as true. The get user will return that random data that we created, and then the errors, which comes from the validate, will be incorrect token data. At which point it's not going to be empty anymore, and it will trigger this. So running it again. Excellent. So now if we refresh this piece of code was executed as well, and it's test service invalid token. And now the next thing that remains is to check the success here. And of course we're going to do that with the last test. And let me just uncomment it. So the last test is a little bit different. So what I'm going to do in the last test is I'm going to use the login system, the login service. I'm going to send it a username and password. I will have that code generate a token for me. I'm going to use that token, and I'm going to make a call into the refresh post service. Right? So very simple. I'm just saying the password is the word password because I need to send something that I know. I create a new user in the database using a migration. I'm just making sure that I have the email. I already have the password. And this is my payload, and I send it to the login service. Well, the login service will go and do its own thing, and it will return a success and a login payload, and the tokens are going to be in the JWT node of the data node. Now that I know my token, my tokens, the refresh one and the other one, I can use that and take the JWT refresh token and pass it into the refresh service, and then that would actually go and check the user, check if it is a refresh token, check if it's valid, and so on and so forth. And once everything is done, it will generate two more tokens, a refresh and normal one if you like, and then it will execute. One thing left to do is just run the tests again. And let's go to our code coverage. There you go. We got the refresh token working just fine. Excellent. The next thing to do is to check if the token has expired. And this is a little bit of an edge case scenario, but it showcases how we should be thinking when we have this kind of scenario. So I'm just gonna keep that out for a sec. So imagine this scenario. I wrote this a little bit earlier. So we have a user that calls the auth login with a correct username and password. At time equals 2, the application generates the tokens. Time equals 3, the user gets the token and the refresh token. Let's say they store it in the browser cache or something like that. Right at time equals 4, a malicious user or an actor or some JavaScript code or whatever reads those two tokens and saves them somewhere else. At time equals 5, the user logs out. The token has not expired yet. User logs out here, sorry. So then at time equals 6, the malicious user actor can use that token because the token has not expired. And of course, if the malicious user has also the refresh token, they can keep on refreshing the token every single time they want to. And they keep on sending requests to our database without logging them out. Now, we know HTTP is a stateless, so it doesn't keep any state. The minute you get the response, the server doesn't even know you exist anymore. So we have options whether to store tokens in the database and make sure that they expire whenever we need to, or whenever we get a request for an endpoint, we check the database to see if the token has actually expired or has been invalidated, for that matter, because we know whether a token has expired or not from the token itself. But we can certainly check if it has been invalidated or not, and then just say no, you're not passing, thou shalt not pass, as Gandalf would say. For our purposes, we can store the token in cache in Redis. So let me just let me just paste the second part. The solution that we have for this is as follows. The user calls auth login. The application generates tokens. The tokens are stored in the cache, and they can be stored in the cache with exactly the same time to live as the time to live for the token. So Redis will expire the token when the token expires itself. All right. Then at time equals 4, this is the main difference with above. Then at time equals 4, the user gets the token and refresh token. Then we have the theft from the malicious actor. The user logs out, or the token expires. The application removes the token from the cache, or the cache although expires it. The malicious user tries to access the token to get data. The application checks the cache if the token is present, valid, and access is denied. So that's what we need to do. This is our little scenario that we have to do. We need to make sure that these tokens exist in the cache. And if you noticed in the login post service, down here we had store token in cache. So it was storing the token in cache, and this is a method that we created in the cache service in the previous episode, I think, or before. So what are we doing in the stored token in cache? Very quickly, we're making sure that the expiration, we have the token expiration here, and then we're just saying, all right, the expiration date is whatever, okay? And then what we're doing is we're calculating the key, the token key, and we're just saying, all right, store this thing in cache. So the cache key here is the get cache token key, which comes from up here. And if you remember, the mask token user is tk dash something else. And what this something and something else are is, first of all, the user ID and then the token itself. Let me see if I have some in my database here. Yes, I do. So when I was running the tests, this is what I had running. And you can see here there is a user with 2339, and again 2339, 2352. So that's the username. And that big string is the hash, the SHA1 of the token. And if we open this, it actually gives you a payload, which is the token itself serialized and so on and so forth. This content doesn't matter that much. What matters is this key. And the reason we're using this technique is because we want to be looking for the key itself. Once we get the token, we can do an SHA1 on it. And that SHA1 will give us the token that we want. All right. Now the SHA1 will always be the same for the particular token. Sorry, let me put this. So for a token that was created, usually from what I can tell, this one is the refresh, the normal token. This one, the refresh one, right? So once I know the token, the whole string that was sent to me, I can do SHA1. I have the user ID, and then I can look in here in Redis if this exists. And that is certainly a lot faster than trying to find a key based on the ID of the user, or potentially storing all the tokens that the user has in an array or a JSON string, if you like, in a tk dash blah blah user ID key. So it's another technique that you can use. You can certainly get rid of the SHA and have test tk 2339, and in there just say this time is this token, that time is that token, so on and so forth. And then your application, when it has to invalidate the tokens, goes and removes them at whatever point. And of course, in that structure, you would have to save the date. Doing it this way, you're taking advantage of Redis's expiration or time to live for the item that you're storing, so it will disappear on its own. Okay, so we got this store token in cache. As we mentioned, it comes from the cache here. It sets the cache key and the payload. The payload can be anything you want. I just have a couple of things there, and the expiration will be whatever token expiration we have here as the default. So why don't we move and create middleware? And the middleware will be the one that will allow us to check if the token has been expired or not. So let's grab, let's say this one, and copy it. Validate token revoked. And in this one, it's going to be a little bit easier. Let's get rid of this. We don't need it. So what are we going to do? All right. Actually, let me copy it. It's going to be easier to show you this way and go through it instead of typing and typing and typing. All right. So let's do some imports here. All right, excellent. So tiny bit of cleanup. All right, so what we're doing is this one will run as a last middleware. After we could put it earlier as well. It's entirely up to you, but the requirement is that the session user exists. If you recall, here in the user middleware, we actually got the database record, and then we set it as the session user in our transport. So this one has to exist. So we can put it somewhere underneath the user middleware before the validation or something like that. For now, we can just leave it as the last middleware that goes on. So we're grabbing the request, we're grabbing the cache, env, and the transport repository. And from the transport repository, we're getting the session user. This one has been calculated before. Then we're checking what the bearer token is. We're calculating the token key based on the token, and then we're checking if the key exists in cache. So it will try and check if one of these exists, because we have the token, we're getting it from the bearer header, the authorization header. We're calculating the key, making it TK dash user ID, whatever, and then this SHA1 of the token itself. And then we're just checking if it exists in cache. And if it doesn't, bye, right? So in order to get this guy to work, we need to go to our routes enum. And now we're coming back to the middleware, and we just need to get this thing active here. So for that, let's go to the container for just a second. And it's this one here that we had commented out. This one. And we have middleware validate token revoked. So now back to the routes enum, and then it's going to be the last one. So now the token will be checked if it exists in the database, and we'll make sure that it's there for us to work with. Otherwise, the scenario that we mentioned here, that somebody hijacked your token, it hasn't expired yet, and can use it in the future after you logged out, then that will not work. Because as soon as you log out, the system will invalidate all the tokens. Okay. Now, one thing before we run the test for this, the token revoked, I'd like to make a small change in the cache and create a method where we can delete all the keys for a particular user, right? And this one will be very helpful when we are logging people out. All right, so store token in cache. We're gonna have, let me just copy the method, and I'll explain step by step what we're doing. All right, so let me bring this here. Right, this is the cache adapter. Okay, in order for us to delete the keys, and this is something that we can certainly work on Phalcon to make it better, but this was the best way to get it done. So the cache interface, the simple cache PSR interface, does not offer the ability to get all the keys from the database. Certainly we could promote whatever our adapters are offering, but that would be an extra class. It will not be just it will not be following the interface. So in order for us to get the keys, we need to actually go to the adapter, which is a storage adapter. In our case, it's Redis. So what we're doing here is we're grabbing this adapter, right? And then we're calculating the get cache token key. All right. Actually, that would not work. I need to make a tiny change here. I'll come back to the get cache token key in a sec. So the get cache token key, our goal is to get the username, the TK dash username, and then not the SHA, right? So I could potentially do the TK dash and then concatenate the domain user get ID, something like this. Right? I could do this, but then I'm gonna have to remember to change this if I ever want to change my mask when I change this. So I prefer to use this get cache token key to calculate everything for me. So the goal is, if I don't supply a token, it should just return to me the what you call it, the prefix without the SHA1. And actually, let me just do that now. So this is what we want to do. If the token is empty, then it should just return this and nothing after that. So token string equals nothing. Oops. Oh, come on. And then if true not equals empty token, then token string equals SHA1 of token. And of course, it will be token string here instead of the SHA1. So if I pass an empty string here, it will be an empty string. So it will give you these up until here. The last %s will be empty. And that's what we want. All right, so we're coming back down here to the invalidate for user. So we got our adapter, and then we're just getting the prefix, if you like, of the key, which will be the user as well, the user ID. And then we're just saying, give me all the keys with this pattern. So in our case, it will be TK-2123, whatever the ID is. Once we get all the keys from Redis, we need to figure out what the prefix is. And then once we get that prefix, we need to remove it from every single key, because if you keep the prefix, the delete multiple will add the prefix on its own. So then you're stuck because you have two prefixes and you're not able to delete the keys. This is what I was saying. We have to work a little bit, most likely with the community, to address this issue. So should the get keys return prefixed keys or not? Because this here is the cache prefix that is set in the adapter itself. Okay, so we gotta work this thing out. But for now, we're getting the keys are prefixed. We're getting the prefix, we're removing the prefix from every key, and then once we have all the keys manipulated, then we're just setting a delete multiple for the new keys. All right. Now, one thing to do is here when we're doing refresh post service, I forgot to do this, but this is interesting. All right, we went through all of this, right? We got the tokens, and then we got the new token, then the refresh token for user. What we did not do here is invalidate old tokens, store new tokens in cache. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say this cache invalidate for user, and then it will be this env. And then the next parameter, what did we have? Is a user transport. And which one is my user transport? It's this one here, domain user. So what this will do is it will delete all the tokens that exist in the cache for this particular user, and then we need to store the new tokens again. So let me come back here and copy this line here, and then go back here, paste this, and so we need to store token in cache. Domain user is token. It's actually new token, and then new refresh token. So this is a crucial step, because what we send back to the user are two new tokens, a refresh and a standard one. and the old ones should completely disappear. We shouldn't even touch them. Now, on this validate token middleware, the way we've done this, we need to test it, and we need to test it based on the test that I wrote here. Refresh post service. Let's go to middleware, and let me copy this one. Validate token revoke middleware. Alright, and I'll just copy it and paste it here so you guys can see. Alright, I copied the wrong thing. Lord, it's the test that I want to copy, not the code of the actual middleware. Sorry. There we go. Test is here. Alright, let me get some imports going here. Cache and then user transports. Alright, so let's go comment that one. Alright, what are we going to do here? We're creating a new user. We're putting the user in the database. We're setting our application and our middleware. And the middleware that we want to run is this one, middleware validate token revoked, right? Is this how we call it? Yes. Yes. Excellent. All right. So we got everything done here, and then we're getting the transport repository. We're setting the user in the session because that's a requirement for that middleware to run. We're creating a server payload simulating a request of what it would be. In our case, it would be just the user, and we're just throwing a token in there that we've calculated. So then what we're doing is we're starting the output buffer, we're calling the middleware, we're closing the output buffer. And then in the contents, we're just checking what is going on. And then we're saying, all right, in the errors, you're just going to have application token not valid, which should be this part here, right? So if I run the tests, we should have some execution in there. Okay, not on the spot that I expected it to be, but it's fine. And if I go to the code coverage, go to domain, components, middleware, you see that it did execute all the way here, and then it stopped on this one because that was the halt. Okay, so now if we go back to the test, not this one, not this one, this one. If we go back to the test and enable the one below, let's discuss a little bit this one. Test validate token revoked success. We're creating the migration, getting a new user token, calling everything. We're making sure that the token exists in the cache. That's the key here, because it does check for the token existence in cache, and we're putting a time to live of 2 seconds because we don't want that token to be there after this. Then we're simulating the call, and we don't worry about the output buffering because this one should return true. And once we get the true, it should work just fine. It just bypassed everything. It didn't output anything on screen. It just moves on to the next one. So we still have this one, token not valid, which is fine, but and we're gonna address that. But now if I refresh, you see it's true, and it did test validate token revoked success. So we know for sure that this particular middleware is running, and if the token is not in our cache, it will pretty much nuke it, right? Or it will stop executing. So we got reasonably good protection here. And next thing that we need to do is fix the tests and work on the users. Let's try and fix this test. I have a feeling I know why it's failing, but let's have a look again at the message. Invalid token verification, token not valid. Okay. All right, let's make a small change. This is the test. This is the code, and this is the test that runs. Let's make a small change here. First of all, this is the test for the get. So we have to rename this test to user service get. And actually, let's clone it and make it user service dispatch test. Let's go back to the get. You see this test dispatch. I want to get rid of it out of here. And the reason being is here we're testing just the user get service, just this class in all of these tests. Whereas in the dispatch one, what we're doing is we're kind of like invoking the whole application to run based on what we got here. And let me remove those. And the goal is to have more than one of these. The dispatch, let's put it test dispatch get. To have more than one of these so that we will have the full journey, if you like, from the request being initiated, goes all the way through the middleware to the action, it gets executed, and then it returns by the responder. So this is an end-to-end test. For this one, we need to make sure that we have a couple of things, and I'm pretty sure that I know why this thing is failing. It is because we added the token in the cache, and we're not doing a login here. We might be getting a token, but we're not doing a login, which will store the token in the cache, and then it will be validated with it. So let's get the cache service here as well. Cache, and this one will be cache, and yep. So then we're getting the transport, migration, get user ID. So once we get the token, we need to get a new user. Transport, new user, and that will be the DB user. So we need this guy here. Now what we're going to do is we need to store the token in the cache. And we need the domain user and the token. So this way we've actually simulated oops, hold on a sec. Why is this? Oh, it needs the env manager. This way by doing these, the get user token and the store token in cache, we kind of like simulated the login as it happens. So you went in, logged in, and got a token, and the token was stored in the cache. So here, what we're gonna do is let's offer another option here. user get endpoint, and the ID is user ID. That should be good. Let's see what we've done. Yay! It works perfectly fine. So if I go to my source, I have 100% code coverage on everything that I've done so far. Of course, the PHPStan is not going to be as easy because we did miss quite a few things. I'm pretty sure that we're going to have a few errors here. Yep. Refresh post service and user get service. Alright, so it's these input types, and yes, T-user input array is not it's not the way it's supposed to be, because we have a lot more data that is sent. We're going to correct this a little bit later after we introduce the get and the post, and we're going to have more of an input. This one says user get service, user ID int on the left side does not exist. Where's the user get service? It's up here. This one is T-user input, and T-user input needs ID, not user ID. Actually, let me copy the rest of the whole type, which is a representation of all the fields in the database with their domain names. There you go. So this is what we expect the user input to be. We can just have any of these guys. Let's see now, composer analyze. And we have in the refresh post service, the offset token is not correct. So the refresh post service, alright, we're gonna do our refresh input because we're passing the login input. In the input types, so the refresh would be what? The refresh input will be just token. So if I go again, 2 errors. Get for user expects this. We send a different payload, so JWT token. Alright, so JWT token needs the user record, DB record, and validator errors. So 90, line 90 is user DB record. It's the get for user, is it? And get refresh for you. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the user types, and we're going to define a new type for the token. So user transport DB record. So this is going to be a subset of the DB record, and we're going to call it token DB record, and it's going to have the user ID, and then it's going to have the issuer token ID and token password. So copy that. Let's go to the JWT token, and that one is going to replace this one, which will be this one, and the one for refresh, and also the generate here, because all we need is these 4 fields, and that's what we're passing really, or more, but still, there you go, no errors. So just to explain this a little bit, to generate the token we need just 4 fields, 1, 2, 3, 4, the user ID, token, password, and token ID. We might pass the whole DB object here, but we just need these ones, and we do that, I believe, in the refresh. Yes, in the refresh we're actually sending those 4 fields. As such, the PHPStan is saying, hey, you're telling me that you're passing a full database record, and in this instance here you're not, so just tell me what to do. We're certainly going to do this change here. We're going to change the get for user to accept a domain user, a transport object. Same thing with the get refresh for user, and then we're going to play around with those. Okay. Let's move to enable the delete service. So user delete, if we want to delete a user. We're gonna follow the same example we did in auth. We're gonna clone this, and we're gonna make it an abstract class, abstract user service, and clearly it's not going to be a final read-only. And then in that abstract class we're just going to have the constructor in there. There we go. Clearly we need them protected, read-only. There we go. We don't need this import. Oops. And what do we have here? Just to clean things up. There we go. And for the user get service, we need to get rid of the read-only and then make it extend abstract user service, and of course this one goes away. So this way all of our user services are going to be inheriting from the abstract user service, which will have our constructor. Alright, so if we were to create the delete service, let's copy this. So the user delete service will obviously have an invoke, and we're going to need the user ID as we do it here, and then of course we're going to have to check if it does exist. But here in our delete area, we need to make sure that we were able to delete it, and this find by ID comes from the user repository, so we have to have a method here in the user repository to delete a record. So before we move into this, let's go down here and have a look about what we're going to do with delete. Now, as a repository, we could potentially have just a delete method, or it's fine if you have delete by. You have to be a little bit careful, because the more you delete by in different fields or something like that, the higher the repository, the more complex the repository becomes. So you have to be a little bit careful on that. For this, I thought about it, and let's create some sort of an abstract class that will help us work with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this repository, the user repository, copy it, and then paste it here, and call it abstract repository. And of course it will be an abstract class. And we need to get rid of this. Doesn't matter that much anymore. So what we need to do here is we need to have a constructor, but also what I want to do is I want to work a little bit with properties here, so that we can get a little bit more value from this class. So protected string ID field equals nothing, and protected string table equals nothing. And I'll explain what that is. So this class clearly is going to be the base of other classes. For instance, this user repository, right? And for starters, let's get rid of the find by email, because that one is mostly on the user side, but find by ID is something that we can use in other areas too. We can certainly use the find one by. So far so good. Yes, it does say here that we return a T user record, but we can fix all that. So if you look at the ID field in the table, clearly the find one by is the find by ID. We need this to be the ID. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace it, ID field, and then again down here, this one will be the table. So now that I have this find one by and all that, if I go to abstract repository and say extends abstract repository, now very easily we're going to see that we don't need a constructor, but we need the fields. So protected string table will be CO users, and then protected string ID field equals USR ID. So by doing this change here, I'm able to extend the abstract class for another repository, let's say a company repository or something like that, and the find by ID, the find by, will work just fine. We're going to leave the find by email here. We no longer need this in here, and we don't need this here either. So this looks okay. All right, we did this little refactoring, but let's go back to the abstract. And as we do this find one by, right, we need to do a delete by, right? So we're going to follow exactly the same pattern as we did here with the find one by ID and find one by. So let's copy this method, and we're just going to call it delete by. will be criteria. This one will become delete equals delete new, and then this connection. And now our statement equals delete, and then it will be table equals this table. Yep. And then we can do the where equals, and then in the end we need to do perform, and the result will be statement row count, and which will not be an array, will be an integer. Alright, so let's unpack this a little bit. We're gonna send some criteria in here, and what we're gonna do is we're creating a new delete object. We're gonna set the table to this table, and the where equals, of course, and then we're gonna perform the operation. A statement will be a PDO statement, so we can call the row count on it, which will return an integer of how many records have been affected. Clearly, if you sent the wrong criteria, records will be 0, and then you can handle this in your code. Equally, now we can do a delete by ID, similar to the find by ID. Actually, this one will go underneath. Yes, because it's alphabetical the way we're doing it. Probably this one goes down here. Delete by ID. Delete by ID. And it will be, I think, int, yes, because it's going to be the same thing. Int here, return delete by, and that's pretty much it. And the return will be, actually we don't even need to do if, we're just going to return the delete. If it returns 0, it returns 0. And also I want to do a change here, because it will make things a little bit easier. It's not a user ID anymore, it's a record ID. Let's replace it everywhere, because this is the abstract class. Alright, so we're deleting by ID with this, and we're matching the ID field with whatever we passed as an integer. And then we're deleting here when we're doing the full perform. Okay, so now that we have this and user delete service, we have the ability now to delete a record, because this repository user, now if I put the little pointer here, now I can have the delete by ID, and then I can put user ID here, and that will be what is what we need to do. Now I'm not sure if we want to do this. I'm just gonna go ahead with if you send the wrong criteria, I'll send you back a records not found. But if I do have records that have been deleted, you're gonna get a correct payload, right? So we're just gonna say this one will be rows, which is the affected rows. Rows greater than 0. So we're gonna return a new payload, and this time it will be deleted. And the data, we're gonna put a message that says record deleted successfully. Actually, this is 1, so it will be record. And then we'll have this, and then this, and then user ID, and then it will close like that. So this is our delete here. As you can see, it's extremely easy to follow through. We're sanitizing our user ID. If the user ID is greater than 0, then we're issuing a delete in our database. If for whatever reason we didn't get anything, we're going to get a 404, so to speak. Otherwise, we're going to get records deleted successfully. And while we're here, let's do the delete test. Oh, important. We need to go to the routes, and we need to go to the container, because otherwise it wouldn't know what to do, right? So UserDelete service here. All right, we're going to do the same thing that we did with auth. Get service user, and where is it? Should be at the bottom. Yes. Get service user, and then it will have string class name. Since we're going to be utilizing the abstract class, the constructors are going to be the same. For the constructor parameters are going to be the same for all. So there's no reason not to do this, and the class name will be here. Alright, so coming back, this is get service user, and the get will be user get service class, and then now the delete service will be user delete service class. So that's our registration. Now we know that this thing exists, or we can get it. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to clone this, delete test, and I'm going to copy and paste the tests, and we're going to go through them. What we need to do is import this and comment it. Alright, so how is our test going to work? We're going to get the user delete service from the DI container, and we're going to evoke it with ID 0. If you recall, ID 0 on the... Man, I have too many files open. ID 0 will hit this, and then it will go to this payload, so it will tell you records not found. Okay? And then that will be this. If we run it, and our code coverage, services, user delete service, what we expected. It hit this one, but it never went to the bottom one. And now let's uncomment this. So what we're doing in the second test is we have the delete service, and then we need to ask for a user to be deleted with an ID that does not exist in the database. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a user, delete the user, and then try to delete the user with the same ID. So this one will achieve two things. So first of all, it will go here, and then it will delete the user. Then it will go here, perfect, and then it will return this. The second time that we're going to run it with the same ID, it will come here, try to delete it, the rows will be 0, so then it will give you the payload not found. Okay? So this is our code. We're creating the new user with a migration. We're invoking the delete service with the user ID. We're getting deleted as a status. We're getting record deleted successfully for this. And then we're calling it again. This shouldn't have been 0. This should be the same ID. We're calling it again with the same ID, and then we should get not found. Okay? So let's run this. forgot that dot. Well, okay, let's put the dot here. It's the little things. There you go. And in our code coverage, the minute we run, you see here the test service with user ID, again with user ID, but if I click here, it's with user ID but also 0 user ID. So it came to the second part of the test down here, deleting the user, the user with the same ID again, a user that has been deleted. And this is our delete service. Let us try now to do the post. So we're going to try and insert a user by using the post. So first things first, let's have a quick look about of our ADR input class. And yes, we are correct. If you recall, this class is being instantiated by the action handler, and it collects the input from different streams. So from the get query of the Phalcon request will give you the $_get superglobal. This one will give you the $_ post superglobal, and we'll merge everything, and then we'll inject it to our service. So we're great. We have that. We added this when we were doing the logging stuff, so I just wanted to make sure that we have it. So first things first, let's go to the user side of things, and let's clone this and call it post, UserPost service. And for that, let's leave this thing empty for now. And I don't think we need anything else. All right. Now let's set this thing up in our container. We have the UserPost service here, this constant. So let's move here. Post. And it will be the UserPost service class. All right, so there's our registration for this. That's great. We need to check the routes just to make sure that we have everything sorted out. And this is something we forgot to do when we were doing the delete. We did not tie the delete service with the delete routes. So we can do that right now. So we have delete post, all right. We have login, logout, refresh. There you go. We didn't even do the what you call it, the delete part here. Now here's an interesting side effect here. We have an enumeration that returns strings here, and in the user get, we're gonna do a user with a verb get. We're gonna call the endpoint user with the endpoint get. But when we call delete, it's still gonna be the user endpoint, but that's gonna be the delete method. So how do we distinguish those, right? We can't, because if I do user delete here, it has exactly the same value, and the enumeration doesn't like that. So one of the solutions we can do is, if we change the URL to be user get and then user delete, we can certainly do that, and then issue a delete verb on it. And the other alternative is to change this from being strings to being just arbitrary numbers that will produce these results later on. So let's do the numbers, but certainly you can change this enumeration thing the way you want to. So I'm going to change this to int. It's gonna be an int here. And let me clone this down and comment it out. So login post, we're gonna call it as 11. Logout, we're gonna call it 12, and a refresh, we're gonna be 13. So the auth ones will be in the tens. So user get will be, let's say, 21, and then user delete will be 22. Actually, let's do 21 the delete, 22 that, and then we're gonna have a post and then a put. So that one will be 23 and 24. These numbers are going to be irrelevant, so we could potentially get rid of the int as well and just have these, because we're never going to use the value. I'm leaving this just in case we might need it. I don't see how we will need it, but just leave it for now. Alright, so the method here, we have login, logout, refresh. User get is get. We're going to have user delete will be delete, and then user post and user put, and those will be post here and put there. And actually the post, I can move it in this area here so I can group them together. Makes it just a little bit faster. For the middleware, we don't have to worry about it. On the prefix side of things, this is how we're gonna work with our enumeration here. So let me copy this part and just paste it here. And what I'm gonna do also is I'm gonna create two more variables, which will be the prefix here, right? So, or, yeah, I don't need it. That's fine. So on the prefix side of things, auth login post, logout, and refresh post will return auth, whereas the other ones will return user. And then put it endpoint equals that, and then that will be endpoint. So what we're doing is we're getting this part, the front part, or the user. So now the suffix is going to be different. Let me copy this part here and move it all the way down so that we can see what we have. These are the services. We're going to get to this in a minute. And now the suffix will be, so auth login post will be login, logout will be logout, refresh will be refresh, and then delete get post put will be nothing, because we said that we're gonna hit the same endpoint, and the actual method is gonna be what will distinguish what we're doing. So we're gonna do a return here. We don't need anything else underneath that. And now we need to do the services. So user get post put. So this one will be the delete. This one is the post, and this one will be the put. And let's adjust the services. User delete service. This one will be user post service. It's the one that we just created, and this one will be a to do, right? So we're gonna come back on this one. And now that we have this, we actually wired up the application to do the post, get, the delete, and we had to make a small change here. Again, Since we're not utilizing the value of each enumeration element, which we were doing before because we had it as string and the value was the endpoint itself, we could skip these numbers and change the enumeration to have a no type, so not being a backed one or a union one, and just use these as distinguishing factors as to what we want to achieve. We're just leaving it for now as is. Okay. Now, as far as let's close the delete test, delete service, get service. I got too many files open as always. All right, so in the UserPost service, we're going to come back to this and figure out what we want to do. So what we're getting here is a bunch of data being supplied by the user, right? And let's go to the input types and let's sketch this out, how it's going to be. All right, we have login input, that's an email and password. Refresh input, it's the token. Actually, since we're planning a little bit ahead, we're going to do a logout input, and that will be again a token. That will come a little bit later, but might as well put it here. The user input is what we're gonna receive from the user, and the question marks are these fields might not even exist when they send everything to us. What we're gonna do is we're gonna create an array or a shape, if you like, that will be what happens when we do sanitize the input. Okay, so we're going to call this tuser sanitized input, and this sanitized input would be what is sent to us, what is the processed payload that can be sent downstream towards the database or whatever. Now this can very well be a transport object, and we are going to make it in the next part, but for now let's keep it as a simple array, and then we can send everything to the database the way we need to. And actually, since we're doing the post will never have an ID, and these are going to be done. So tuser sanitized insert, because this is an insert operation, and I'm going to do the other one as well, because this is what I'm going to be waiting for. This will be the update, the type, and that will be an ID, and that one will not have a created date and created user ID, because when we're doing an update we never want to change those two values. Okay, so this is what we should end up after we process the input that was sent to us by the user. Okay, so where do we tie this thing in? All right, let me just copy this part, and let's go back to our service, and let's have this handy there. All right, so we got our user input, and clearly we need to check this input and what's going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a method array input, and it's going to be an array. So what this method will do is it will receive a tuser input, and it will return a tsanitized user sanitized insert input, because we're in the post. Okay, so here let me just copy the code instead of me just typing everything. Give me just a moment. Let's put the dates here. All right. So what we're doing here is we're filtering pretty much what fields we want. Yes, it does say sanitize, and it's not really a sanitizer here, but we're picking up the fields and we're just letting them be blank and all that stuff. Another way would have been to pretty much dump this whole thing into some sort of a transport object, and the transport object would have done some of these calculations with having the fields that have not been defined as null. So that would have been something to do, but for now we just leave it as an array. We can do that in the next video. So we're checking whether these elements exist in the input array, whatever has been supplied by the user, and if they don't, you have the defaults, and that results to this array, which is pretty much constant, right? Now for the created date and updated date, if they're empty, if they're null, so we just force a date on it. Okay, so we need to tie this thing with our method here. So clearly we need input data equals this sanitize input and then input. And what we're going to do also is we're going to figure out if we have any errors. This one we will expand as well. Validate input data. And what the validate input would do is it will check whether certain fields that we want exist. And so the validate input will receive what is this guy? Not T user input. Will receive the sanitized one. And what it will return is these are the validation errors. Yes. So validation errors. Let's go back to the input types real quick. Validation errors will be an array of an integer, and then each element will be an array of integer and string. Okay, so these validation errors will be errors here. So that's what's gonna be returned. But also it could very well be that it is an empty array. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna be validation errors or array empty. And let's have a quick look what we're gonna do. So errors equals nothing or empty, required equals so what are we going to do with the required ones? Let's copy these guys here and let's see which ones we really want. So the status, we just leave it like that. We want definitely the email, the password, names, meh, it's okay, we can just leave them out. Issuer, token, password, token ID, yes. Preferences created and deleted, no, we don't need those. So we're gonna keep only these fields that I have here, and if those are empty or not present, we're gonna generate an error. So required as name of the field, and then we'll have field equals input data name or empty, because all these are strings, and then if true empty field errors equals field, oops, it was a good autocomplete there you go, field whatever cannot be empty, right? And then all we have to do is return, I'm missing this, all we have to do is return errors, and that will return any errors that we have in this validation script. So we just want to make sure that the email password issuer and token password and token ID are present. In the next iteration, or a future iteration if you like, we're going to add validators to these fields, and it will certainly simplify this validate input a lot, because we can just call validate and then it would pick up all the validators attached to this particular object. Now we have the errors here. Okay, so what we need to do is, first of all, let's see, user service, is that okay? So where is it? This one, errors exist, return early. If true is not empty errors, return new payload, and it will be domain. Means that is it will be invalid, and then in there we're gonna say errors equals errors. So that's our first exit. Now we need to do a little bit of manipulating, because we're in the process of adding stuff in, right? So first and foremost, we need to get the password. Input data password. We don't have a security object here. We're going to call hash and password. I'm going to come back to this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to re-update the input data with the hash password. So we're grabbing whatever was given to us, we're hashing it, and then we're re-updating it here in the input data, so that we're able to do the operation. Now, in the abstract user service, we certainly need the security service here. And of course, we fixed this issue here, security exists, but we need to go back to the container and go to the user get service and then inject the service there. Security. Now, the hash for the password works primarily on the insert and potentially in the update, if the password is already there. It doesn't work on the delete and the get. As such, the get service user is injecting more services than they actually need. So, for instance, in the get instance, we don't need the security service. I'm just going to leave it as is, and even though we're going to inject more services and keep the signature the same here, you can certainly change it. Maybe have these three for the delete and the get, and then have all these four for the post and the put. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it. I'm just going to leave it as is. But we know that we do this on purpose, right? Yeah. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we have a record. Insert the record, and then what we're going to do is get the user from the database and return the user back. All right, these are our steps. So if we want to add the user in the database, we have to work with our user repository. All right. So if you recall, in the user repository up here, we recently put the the delete in there. But now what we need to do is we need to put the insert. Okay. So we have T user record from user types. Okay. We need to make a new type. The type would be the token DB record, user DB record. We need a type for insert and a type for update. So that data, the insert and the update, come straight from the domain. So it doesn't use any USR underscore fields. It uses these ones here. Let's put it underneath the transport like this. And we're going to call it T user insert. And the insert never has the ID. It has status, email, password, name, blah, 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 and all the way to the end. Okay, so this is our insert. It's pretty much the whole transport minus ID. We don't want the invert types here. User repository. Okay, there, and we're gonna do that. Okay, so in the user repository now, we need to create an insert method. We have the find by email, we have public function insert array user data, and that will return an int, and that will be our method. It will require a T user insert here, and what it will return is the ID of the newly inserted record. So what we're going to do is we're going to map the columns in the data from what the domain sent us. That's the user data, and then let me paste it to fields in our database. So I just copied it so that we don't have to wait until I type everything. We know that these fields exist, and they come in here with the user data variable. We're keeping the user ID in here because we're going to have to remove it. We're keeping the user ID here because we're going to have to update it in a special manner in our model, because the user ID could very well be null or empty or stuff like that, and our model does not allow nulls in there. So we want to make sure that we have something valid here. We can certainly work on these and make our model tighter. Situations like these actually show you minor flaws in your code and in your design, and how are you gonna take care of them. Will you allow a null for updated user ID, or will the absence of a user ID is 0? That is what you have to decide. For now, we just leave them as they are. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a new insert object, and this is from our data mapper, new this connection, and no columns, just that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go insert columns. Actually, we need to do into this table, and then and then columns equals columns, and this is where the user ID and the created and the updated user ID matter. create a user ID greater than 1. Greater than 0 actually. Then we're going to do insert column USR created USR ID equals that. And we're going to do the same thing for the updated. And then what we're going to do here is insert perform, and then return. We're going to cast as an integer. Insert get last insert ID. So that will be our insert here. Going back to our post service. Now we need to insert the record. And we know that the operation could throw an exception, especially a PDO one. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this thing in a try catch and then check results. We need repository. And then we're going to do user. And now insert. And we need to put the input data. And then catch here PDO exception EX. And then we're going to return this. I'm going to create a method here that will give us all this data: get error payload EX get message. Now let's create the get error payload. And that's not going to return an array, return the payload. Yep. And then errors will be HTTP codes in them. App cannot create database records, text, and then we're going to add message to it. This item in the HTTP codes in num collection, we created it some time ago, and cannot create databases, cannot create database record, and then it has a little space, and then you just put whatever you want there as the message. So it works here with this get message with the PDO exception. And now let's check what it was returned. If user ID less than 1, then we will return this get error payload, and we're going to say no ID return. All right, just in case. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get the new user from the database, and we're going to return it back to whoever called this, so that they have the full object. So db user equals this repository user get find by ID, and this is the user ID. the domain user equals this transport new user db user. All right, and all we have to do now is do the return new payload domain success, and then data will be domain user to array. So this is gonna be our insert, our post. Very quickly, just to go through this again, we're coming over here, we have our input, whatever was supplied by the user. We're calling sanitize input, which really doesn't sanitize, it just keeps certain default values. And we just create this array. We did mention this, add sanitizers here. To do, maybe this is another domain object. So we could potentially send a domain object here, construct it when it's sent in from the input. So we're creating everything here, we're putting default values, so we have this array here. Okay. Then we're just saying, all right, validate this input, and this validate input, what it does is it checks whether the email password issuer, token password, and token ID, if they are empty. If they are, we have a problem. If they're not, they're just fine. And then if we do have errors, then it will return a new payload of invalid or error. We can just put invalid here. That's fine. Then what we're doing is we're hashing the password because we need to, and then we're calling the insert on our query repository so that it can insert the data in the database. If a PDO exception occurs for whatever reason, it will be returned back with a payload. We have to be careful with this exception, because sometimes exceptions can reveal a lot of information about our database and our structure behind the scenes. So this one, you have to be very careful of what is sent. Maybe we can change this and just send a generic error, a database error has occurred, and then log what the message was in our logger. We can certainly do that. And actually, let me put a note here to do send generic response and log the error in the logger. Well, log the error. So that's something that we can certainly do. For whatever reason, if the user ID has been less than 1, so it was not returned, then we say no ID return. Of course, in our database here, we're using absolute integers, so there's no negative IDs. There's certainly databases that support this, but we decided not to do it. If your implementation is the one that does use, for whatever reason, negative IDs, then of course you're going to have to change this, and you're going to have to remove all the absolute integer filters that we put into different other methods, such as the get, for instance, or the delete. Then once the user is added in the database and everything is fine, we have the user ID. We're querying again the database to get the user, and we're creating a new domain object, and then we're sending that domain to the user. So once the user submitted everything, once the caller, the client, if you like, whether this is some consumer or postman or any other HTTP client, once they submit the data, what they will get is they will get the full record that was created back, including the ID, including the creation dates, and so on and so forth. So that is our post. Let's create the tests for it. Copy. Okay. Let me quickly copy this. All right. So let me here. Okay. Do the imports. All right. Let's do that. Oh, there's something we missed on here. Yeah. Filter. Security. All right. Let's close this. Close this. That. All right. As before, let's close these. Let's comment these tests, and let's go to the first one. What are we going to do here? Test service failure validation. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to send something to the actual service. We're going to invoke the service, and we expect to get errors back. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit the part where the validation sits. So it's going to do this. This is where we're aiming. Let's run our tests. All right, we have errors. Okay. All right, well, that's not a big deal. First of all, the tests fail because of the routes in num, and then the second set of tests fails because they're out of order. So let's fix everything real quick. Where's the routes in num test? The routes in num test needs to be 7 because we added more. Okay, so routes in num, we don't really need the value on this. We can check it. All right, because we made the change with the routes in num. Let me see. I've pretty much fixed this, didn't I? In the tests. Let me quickly see. Yeah, I fixed that. Hold on a sec. Let me just paste it real quick. I'll paste the correct amount. So for starters, in this test, I actually added test middleware just to make sure that when we're calling middleware, this is what we're supposed to be getting. And this one ensures that the order of the middleware is exactly the way we want to. For this test check items, I made a small change and I put the prefix and the suffix here. So now we have auth login, and then delete, user delete. Actually, this is not correct. The second part, the suffix on this would be nothing, will be empty. Because we didn't go with the user delete, user get. So that's gonna be that. Same, and the same. Whereas here with the login, it's different. And also what we have, it's not only the login, it's the refresh. And then this is refresh. It's a post auth refresh post service, and then it's auth refresh post. Okay. So now if I run it, it should pass. We had 7 failures. 7 matches expected size of 5. So that solves that. There we go. Okay, routes in test 103. Yes, we made a mistake in the routes in Yay for tests. So these ones should come out like this with a slash. Okay, and now we have what? Login is actually slash login and slash refresh, which is fine, slash user, and then this one says the refresh, and then on this one it says what? Oh, we don't have a, do we have a put? I guess we do. Oh no, it's a get service because we don't have the put yet. This is a to do. We haven't created the put, so we substituted it with a get service for now. So we have one error again in the this one. Which one is this? Auth refresh post. Let's check our routes in them. Where are the services? Of course. There we go. Refresh post service. Don't you just love the tests? They actually tell you where you messed up. It's fantastic. Amazing tool to help you figure out exactly where you're wrong and what changes you made. Small mishaps. You see, these were all little copy paste errors, so we got everything sorted out. So this one here, it says field token ID and password cannot be empty, so it's like that. Token password is first and token ID is second, and now it should pass. Well, clearly not. And it says router provider. Okay, it's the router provider. It needs 8. So where's the test? Here. Okay, refresh user get 1 2 3. So this one will be delete, this one will be post, and this one will be put. So this one will make them all the same. 8 in total, 8 routes. Alright, great. Let's look at the code coverage. Let's go back. Now we see the UserPost service, and let's see if we got our target. Yes, the target was to click on the validate input, and then we have errors, and then we get this invalid. And if you scroll down, we did work on this sanitize. We haven't sent any created dates or updated dates, but it did run the validation input. Okay, so now let's go and enable the next test. The next test uses a little bit of mocking in order to achieve our results. You can certainly create or simulate a database error, but for our purpose we don't really need to, because we can mock objects and just simulate it that way. So our mocking strategy is we're going to create a user repository and we're going to mock insert And whenever we call insert on that user repository, we're going to throw a new PDO exception ABCDE. Then what we're doing is we're mocking the query repository, and whenever we're going to call the user method, it's going to return this mock user repository. And then what we're doing is a little bit of a different approach here. We could certainly set the objects in the container and then just get the UserPost service from the container. I'm just leaving it this way so that you can see a different way of testing. So one of them is just to create the object straight up with whatever it needs. Another one would be to get it from the DI container. We've done that in the past. So I'm going to leave this as is here so that you guys have different ways of doing this. The caveat of this, the problem with this approach is that if I change the signature in the DI container, I'm going to have to come and change it here as well. So it's up to you what you want. So we're creating this new post service, and then we're getting some user data. We're just generating something. We're creating a new domain user. We're getting the user data, and then we're sending it here as data for our insert. So we're expecting an error because once it tries to insert the data, it's gonna go and hit the insert of the user repository, and then it's gonna throw a PDO exception. To demonstrate, all right, test passed, and then we were here. Now what we are expecting is to come here and this return this get error message. So if I refresh, you see it hashed the password. It tried to call insert, excuse me, and since we had mocked the user repository, and then of course we mocked the user from the repository, the query repository, it would throw an exception. Then the exception came over, it returned it in the payload, the ABCDE, and that's done. The next thing that we have to do is make sure that the user ID is less than 1, so we can get this no ID returned. Again, we're utilizing mocking, and in this case, let me just uncomment this. And in this case, what we're doing is, again, we're mocking the user repository. The insert will return 0. Again, we're replacing the query repository user method with our mocked user repository. Again, we're doing the same thing here, creating the new. Actually, let me do just a little bit differently on this one so that you can see the difference. So what we're going to do is this container set shared container repository. So we're forcing our repository, the mocked one, and we can call it mock repository. No, just leave it. And now if we want to get it, get our service, we're going to do service equal this container get UserPost service, only that it's not a class, it's container post that. We don't need this. There we go. So this is another way of doing the same thing, right? But we also need the transport. All right, so we're coming over here, we're creating, of course, a new domain user, we're picking everything up, we're sending it to the service, and we're expecting cannot create database record, no ID returned. In this case, we are going to get 0 after the insert was called, because that's what our mock does. And once the test run, we're refreshing the page, and lo and behold, this line has been covered because the user ID was less than 1. So finally, we need to do the success, which is pretty much what we wanted in the end. Success is a little bit of a big test, long one rather. And I also have the empty dates there too. So what we're doing is you see the difference in the registration. So I'm just getting the UserPost service from the DI container. I'm making sure that our created user ID and updated user ID have something, either 4 or 5. And then what I'm doing is, again, I'm creating a new user from the user data transport, and I'm just sending it into the invoke. And the reason I'm doing this is because the invoke expects a domain array. It doesn't expect a database array. The get new user data creates a database record, so it will have fields such as USR underscore ID, USR underscore name underscore first, and so on and so forth. What we want is ID and name first and status instead of USR status flag. So that's why we're doing this here for our test. So we're invoking with this domain data, and then we have to get a created back. We need to make sure that the array has the data element on it, and then we're picking up the array key first. The array key first will be the user ID of that record, and we're making sure that it's greater than 0. We're reformatting the data, and then we're checking from our user, the one that we got back, the one that we got from this method here, the get new user data, the random data that we create. Okay, is it the same as the one that we received after we made the call, meaning whatever is in the database? So that's what we're checking, the domain data and the data. And certainly certain things we cannot test. For instance, we cannot test the password, because no matter what we do, the password hash will be different. But we're just making sure that it starts with argon2i, and that gives us an indication that it has been hashed. We could also check if it's different than what we could get here, but that's not going to be a very valid test. Anyway, we're going down the list of fields, so search same on all of them, and we're going all the way to the end. We have 4 here and 5 here, and so on and so forth. Finally, the next test will be if we have empty dates. So if we have not supplied the created date and updated date, what will happen? Well, we are going to have the whole shebang here, the same thing, the created, but what we're going to do is we're going to check, where is it? We're going to check if the created and updated date starts with today's date. Okay, I could make it a little bit more tight if I put in the hour as well and the minute, but then I risk the test not passing if it started executed in such a time where it reaches the 59th second and then it flips over, and when the record was inserted was the 59th second, and when the test executed was the 00 second. So there will be a problem with the minutes there. So I'm just letting the date there, and that's what we're doing down here. We're just asserting that the string contains string. In the created date, you have the OK, the today. And of course, created user ID and updated user ID are 0 by default. So if I run the tests, So test service success. What did we do wrong? Invalid here. Yeah, of course. This one should be created, not success. If you recall, in the deleted, we put deleted. So if I refresh, my code is fine. It did execute here, it did execute there, it executed everywhere, which is fantastic. And my user services are fine. Excellent. The next thing we're going to tackle is the put, which is going to be our update. So let's copy this one and make it put. Now that we have this, let's go to the container and make sure that the put is there. Post put, and that will be user put service class, and of course routes in them. Okay, that one is fine. Those are fine. We'll have to sort out the tests as well on this, but all right, our put service is gonna be very close to our post. So we have the update type. There we go. And what are we going to do in the put service is we're going to sanitize the input, validate the input, and let's see how we're going to sanitize the input here. Well, in this case, what we're doing is we need the user ID as well. So ID will be input of ID or 0. Status, email, password fix. And here's one more thing. Arbitrarily, we're not going to allow the user or the caller to update the created date and created user ID. So we're going to take those out from the payload, and just make sure that everything is fine. Again, we just need to make sure that we have the updated date here, and then we're going to return the sanitized stuff. As far as the sanitize update, okay. As far as the fields are concerned, something to think about. Let me just open the database, and we have a few random records. So here's a question that you have to answer. What constitutes an update? Okay, your user is going to send you some or all of the fields that they are allowed to send. We just said that we were not going to allow the manipulation of the created date and created user ID. But how do you define the update? For instance, if I say that the user ID must be present, which is what I do in the post, in the insert, then that means that either I'm gonna have to be sending excuse me, if I say that the email has to always be present, then just like we do in in the post, then I will always have to send exactly the same email as a caller or as a user of the API, as a subscriber to the API. I will always have to send a fill at phil whatever that is at yahoo.com every time I want to update the record. But what happens if I want to update just the prefix? Then I could certainly leave the user email out, and that will be fine, and then I will have only the name prefix as my field. All right, so the this validate input is definitely not going to be so easy. We have the required fields. Also, one other thing, what if you want to delete the, let's say, the name prefix? The guy just got rid of the prefix, or gave you the wrong suffix, or they got divorced or whatever, and they now have no middle name. Some stuff like that. Or they want to change the issuer. We certainly do not want to empty the user password, the user token, and or they might want to change the user preferences. It's these things that you have to figure out as a designer of your API. What constitutes a change and what constitutes an empty value? Could a null be something that you can do or not? For the time being, let me leave this as is, and then we can decide on a different strategy and just leave it with one strategy here. And after that, you guys can use exactly what you want to do. Okay, so we're going to leave this the same as the post, and we're going to continue with our code. So this one will be update. All right, so those two are the same. Now we have the get error payload. Again, it's the same thing, but in this case it will be app cannot update database record. Slightly different message. This one will be updated, so that's our success. So looking at this code, we don't have a lot to do. Of course, the password needs to be hashed. Here we're going to have to make sure that the password does exist. We are updating the password, and this is what I was mentioning. What are the required fields? Because if I go back down to the validate input, if you notice here, we're just saying that the password must exist. Okay, well, you might not want to change the password of the user every single time you change something or details in them. So you're more than welcome to send something as a null or empty or something that doesn't exist. Well, you don't want to hash the null, right? So this one here needs to be well thought after. So if there is a password that was supplied, then hash it, otherwise don't. Okay. So in our case, what we need to do is we need to go through this code as we go. It's invalid and everything like that. It's the same as in the post, but the difference is here the insert is not an insert anymore, it's an update. And I know we don't have this, but other than that, everything like in here is identical to the post. Okay, so now in our case, what we need to do is we need to go back to the user repository and sort out the update method and how it would actually help us. So let me go here and then here, and now we have the insert. So let me paste the update method for you guys. explain exactly what we're doing here. We need to user insert, to user as well update, and okay. So in the update method, we're doing pretty much the same thing. We're keeping the user ID, we're keeping the updated user ID, and then we're creating a payload with the data that we allow them to be changed. Of course, did mention that we will need to have some sort of a way to filter out all these records, especially if they're null or not, if they don't need to be updated. So for the update method, we need the update object. It will create a new connection, and then it will use this table. It will put the columns where the ID is whatever, and then right after that, we're going to do the updated user ID. We're going to perform, and then we're just going to return the user ID again. And that's pretty much it, the update. Let's run the tests. And of course we have the routes most likely. Yes, it is the routes indeed. In the routes in test, it's because we had the placeholder user get service, or now of course it is user put service. So that's correct. Let's just quickly run it and check on the code coverage. And if we refresh, we see the user put service has no coverage at all. We don't have any tests. Therefore, we just copy this test, service put, and let me copy the code for the tests. Let me just copy the whole thing. Should be fine. There we go. And let me do the same thing that I did. Let's do step by step. It's pretty much the same as the post. The code is identical, so there's a lot of room for improvement and refactoring over there, so we can tackle this the next time around. Token password needs to go up there, so this one will be fine. But in the code coverage, alright, we did execute the validate input. We did try a little bit to sanitize. The date is not there. As far as the main is concerned, we actually hit the errors here. So now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do the exception and then the user ID. Let's do the exception right now. It's the same as before. We're mocking the user repository and just telling it to return a PDO exception whenever the update is called. And in this second test, we're telling that we're mocking again, and we're making sure that there you go. This one will return that, and then if you're calling update, you're gonna return a 0, and that will be the 0 for the user ID. So once it comes back, it's gonna say that the no ID was returned. Okay. We have cannot create, cannot update. Where is the update? And this one probably is update, yes. This one is done. So back to our code coverage. we have executed this part. We went down, we executed these parts. Error and no ID returned, and then we have to do the update itself. Okay. Perhaps what we could do is, in this update, we're not checking whether the user exists. So here, when we're coming over here, this is the put service. We're going through the motions and all that stuff. We did mention that the password will be hashed if it's there. But what we could have done also is here, do a find by ID. And if the user doesn't exist, throw an exception or throw an error, the ID it doesn't exist. So we can certainly do that. This is not insert, of course, it's update. And then what we can do is put a to-do here. Get the user from the database to make sure that it is valid. There we go. So we can have another condition here for sure. So let's do the success and the dates. So running the tests again. I'm not going to bore you with the same thing. It's identical to what we've done with a post. So now that we're there, and it says unknown user repository. All right. So updated an error. Let's go put service. We have updated. We got error. What do we have here? It's what to do. Okay. User service put test. Okay. All right. So it's the success that we're having here. Three, 5. Oh, it's in the dates. Okay. Here's our updated date. We want to get rid of that. Here, it's this one, the updated. So there was something with the user ID, user repository. There's a user ID somewhere here. Oh, yeah, of course. There we go. And our code coverage, we have everything covered. We certainly have quite a few to-dos in our code and opportunities for refactoring. And we are going to address those issues probably in the next video. This one is getting a little bit long. So the last thing to work would be the logout and PHPStan. And I should have worked on the logout earlier when I was doing the refresh, but we got caught in the users. So let's have a look at the logout. What we're going to do. We're going to take this login post service. We're going to copy it. I already did a little bit of work on the logout with regards to the user types, and I created a logout type. If you remember, it was the one that will just accept a token, and that would be it. So for our purposes, Let me check my notes here. For our purposes here, this logout post service will require the logout input. And then of course we're going to need the validation errors. From input types. Okay, so this one needs to come here. All right, what are we doing in the logout? In the logout, we expect the token. So get the token. Token equals string of token, and token equals this filter string token. All right, so we got the token. Now we have to validate it. So it's gonna be if it's empty, the token. And we're gonna return back app token not present. And then we need to check if this is the refresh token, right? And we did do that check in the refresh. So it's somewhere here, I think. Empty token. And we need to get that. Also, we need to get the user after that. And then that. Actually, let me copy this code completely, because most of it is the same. So let me just replace this code. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're coming from the top. We receive the token, then we have the empty token. If it's not present, okay, goodbye. If we're checking if this is the refresh token, because that's the token that we need to send with the logout. And I'm not 100% sure on this. I just chose the refresh token. You can choose not to. You can just choose the normal token just to send it out. It doesn't matter which one you choose. It's just what you decide. If the user is valid and all that stuff, the domain user is here, and then we have to validate the token again, and then get an authorized payload. And now here, this is the main difference. In this part of the code, we're just saying, hey, just create a brand new token. We're going to take that out, and we need to invalidate the new token, the old tokens. So this one is gone, and then domain equals success, and what we're going to return, authenticated, will be false. And that's it. That's our logout. So we certainly can take at least this part of the code, the top part of the code, all the way up to here, and then throw it in the abstract auth service, and then reuse it with refresh, because up until here it's the same code, and really all you need back is the domain user, because that's what you're using here. But again, this is refactoring opportunities for later on. I have a tab somewhere. It's okay. We're gonna correct it. To do catch any exceptions, and let's put another to do here. All right. So for our tests, we need to create a logout post service. And let's copy this class, and let me bring the whole test forward, and I'll explain. So for starters, we're gonna test if the token is empty. This is very similar to the update test, so I'm not going to bore you with it. Sorry, if this is very similar to the refresh post service test. So we're checking if the token is empty and if it throws the app service app token not present. Then the next one is we're checking if this is a refresh token, and what we're doing is we're mocking the item, and then we're mocking the token, and then we're mocking the JWT token so that we can return whatever we want, and that would allow us to get the token is not valid. Again, similarly, more mocking here, and we're getting a wrong user. And finally, more mocking here. If the validation is wrong, we should get incorrect token data, which will happen because we mock the validate method of the JWT token object. And the success, of course, is here where we're getting all the objects. We're creating a new user, we're invoking the service, we're making sure that we do have the data. We're just saying, all right, the authenticated is true, excellent, we just logged in. But then once we're done, we got the refresh token, and then with that we're logging out, and then finally we check the cache if it does have our token key, because that's the key here. If the logout needs to delete the tokens from the cache. So running the tests again, errors, service of logout post, of course. Routes in num, we have login refresh. We're gonna have to do a logout here. Logout post auth logout logout. It's a post logout post service, and the number here is 8. The routes provider, of course. Oh, we already have that. That's great about the tests there, but now we have to go to the container itself. Here, logout post service. Logout post service class. And let me double check the routes in num that it does point to where we need to. It points to the login. Logout. And logout is here. Alright, let's hit it. One error. 7 matches 8. It's routes in num test. I thought it was 7. Where's the routes in num test? Alright, so let's go to our code coverage, refresh. We have 100%, and if we go to auth, the logout, see we have covered everything, especially in this case where the code is identical to the refresh one. The key here is this one, to invalidate the tokens and get authenticated equals false. Finally, let's do a little bit of work with PHPStan. And let's see what we have to do. pretty sure we have quite a bit to do. All right. So we have user repository, cannot import to user update. Okay. So it says user types. Let's have a look at the user types and see where we have messed up in a sense. Oh, of course, we don't have the update. Kind of like jumped the gun there. So this will be our user update, and the user update will have the ID, but it will not have the created date and created user ID. UserPost service. UserPost service. Okay, 175. It's here. We don't need that because when it comes here, it's already created from up here. Yep, and the UserPut service. Again, this is the common code that we discussed. We don't need to check this input data. And Composer analyze, no errors. Excellent. Okay, so just to wrap things up, what we did today is we enhanced our application. We created a refresh, an auth/refresh endpoint where the user can actually send the refresh token that is now being sent back and get a brand new token that will last usually 4 hours or something like that. That particular endpoint stores the, as well as the login, of course, stores the tokens in Redis, in our cache, in order to avoid a man-in-the-middle attack. And we also added a middleware, which is the validate TokenRevoked middleware, that checks if the token that was sent to us is already in the cache. If it's not, it's going to halt the application. We also created, last of course, a logout post service where the auth/logout will invalidate the tokens for the user in the cache. And then we worked on the UserDelete, UserPost, and UserPut to do the whole CRUD. Of course, we had to work on the user repository. We did quite a little bit of work on this, but everything worked in our favor, and we have a nice application so far. It's not fully optimized, of course, but we have a good structure that we can work with now. Certainly a lot of room for improvement, for refactoring. We still have to work and figure out what constitutes a post or an insert and what constitutes an update, what we're going to allow and what we're not going to allow, what is an empty value and what is not an empty value coming from the user. We need to also attach the Phalcon validators into several fields just to make sure that the data validates just fine. This is particularly important in the put and post service. So this validate input will have to work with the Phalcon validators and potentially some validators that we can inject into our code or attach to our code so that it does it makes our life more easy. And after that, I believe that this particular application will be ready, and it will be the end of our videos. Sad, I know, but all good things have to end. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you on the next one.